This is Viterbi Voices, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more.
Directly from our students, faculty, and other members of our engineering community. All right here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Happy Valentine's Day and welcome back to Viterbi Voices. My name is Paul Ledesma, Director of Undergraduate Admission at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And my name is Audrey Roberts. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering here at USC.
Oh my gosh, Audrey, love is still in the air. It is Valentine's Day, and this is our second episode on Love at Viterbi, where we got to have a second conversation with another couple that met at USC Viterbi in their classes. This is Lydia and Peter Madden. You got to meet them for the first time. We just finished the conversation. So tell me what your initial impressions are, what people should listen for, and then we'll catch up on the back end of this.
Well, first off, I think their Love at Viterbi story is great. We kind of made a comment during the podcast. Both of them studied industrial and systems engineering here at USC. And I guess Peter was asking Lydia sort of on their first date, and also got his full-time job offer that same night. So listen to the podcast for the whole story, because it's
for Peter's one day that changed his entire life. He got a job offer and his first date.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly. And yeah, I think professionally super interesting to listen to as well. I think one thing that could be really valuable to people, it's just the way that Peter and Lydia sort of explain their careers and their what they've been up to since graduating gives a lot of insight, not only into like what an industrial and systems engineer actually would go on to do maybe, but also how like the definition of engineering isn't necessarily defined to roles that are called engineers explicitly. Or, these kind of like very traditional engineering roles. So yeah, I think there's a lot to learn here. And another, I think we said this last time, another just sort of fun, hopefully lighthearted episode with the Love at Viterbi theme.
Absolutely. I mean, totally fun with Love at Viterbi, but also I think this is almost like its own ISE episode as well, industrial and systems engineering. So it's almost like you get 2 for 1 today. You get the Love at Viterbi theme, and you get this really thoughtful conversation about what industrial and systems engineering is from an academic standpoint and also professionally. So we got a double banger here. So let's get out of the way, and you can start to meet Lydia and Peter Madden. Hello.
Hi. I'm Audrey. Nice to meet you both. I'm the co-host with Paul. So I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering.
Great.
Very cool. Nice to meet you.
How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Doing great.
Doing well. Thanks for.
We're back in. Yeah, I was gonna say we're back in Southern California, so we're close to you.
That's awesome.
Now, but...
You guys just moved down?
Mm-hmm.
Where we're at?
We're in Playa Vista right now.
Oh, you're really close to me then. Yeah, I'm in Redondo, so like I'm just down the road.
Oh, nice.
Very cool. How do you like Playa Vista?
It's great. I mean, it's definitely like a master planned community, but it's very safe for COVID purposes. It's great to just be able to walk around very easily.
It's like a campus, right? It's like just like a bunch of different like big buildings.
Kinda, right? Yeah. It's like a lot of like the different homes like all look like each other and everything. It's like a true master plan type of deal. But it's like clean, it's safe, super walkable.
Have you guys gone to Playa Provisions yet?
Not yet, but I have heard all about it.
Yeah, I mean, short version, it's like what's that show on Bravo, Master Chef or whatever. It's a huge one of those places, and like it's really unique because it's like 6 different things in one. There's like a coffee bar, there's like a restaurant, there's like a deli, there's like all this other thing, and the chef there is really awesome. It's like very, very casual, very, very nice, however you want it to be. Obviously, you can't necessarily go there necessarily, but for pickup and stuff like that, like it's something to definitely go after. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. That's closer to the beach, right?
Yeah, go straight down, go through the wetlands basically, and then
Yeah.
right there at the tip there. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
guys are up here, and that's down the way, but good for pickup.
Mhm.
Good to know. We'll have to check that out.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for doing this, and it's so good to see you. It's so good to see that you guys are doing well. I mean, first things first, is everything going well with you all? Like everybody's healthy, everybody's doing all right with the fam?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. What about you all surviving our pandemic?
Audrey, you're surviving?
Well, I'm still here, so made it this far, so that's good. Yeah, I'm of course USC is all remote, so we've been doing virtual classes just like I'm sure you've been working remotely. So that was definitely an adjustment in May, but I feel like kind of getting into the swing of things finally.
So are you at campus or are you at home with your family?
I just got back to LA actually. So I'm from Denver originally. So I was in Denver. We had like a very long winter break this year because initially when they were kind of trying to do hybrid last semester, the goal was to have us like go home for Thanksgiving and stay home. And then this semester just started. So I'm back in LA.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's very different. It's very, very different. So this is really exciting to have you guys on, and I think it would probably be best to start off with just telling people who you are, because they don't know who you are. So maybe start with like who you are and where you're from and what you ended up doing at USC and what you've been doing since. Maybe Lydia, we'll start with you.
Okay, sure, yeah. So I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. So coming out to USC was a dream of mine, a big adventure. I knew I wanted to study industrial and systems engineering. I'm probably one of the few high school students that comes in knowing they want that major, but I love like the balance of engineering and business, and Viterbi's program was awesome. I also loved the idea of going to like a big school that had a great engineering program within kind of a broader university, and that would allow me to get to meet people from all backgrounds. And that proved out to be very true. I've made some really great friends, got involved in all sorts of campus activities, loved every minute of my time at USC. Of course, met my future husband there as well. So clearly did well for myself. And then after I graduated with my BS in Industrial and Systems Engineering in 2012, I moved to Texas and worked in oil and gas on a commercial trade floor for 2 years. That was a really unique and exciting opportunity. But towards the end of it, I kind of got sidetracked into maybe a more financial role than I was anticipating. And I was looking to make a career switch. Around that time, I was just very lucky that I had updated my resume and LinkedIn and got a ping from a recruiter at Apple. So it was kind of a dream job to go work for a tech company like Apple. And so we moved to the Bay Area, and I've been at Apple for the last 6.5 years in a variety of different roles in their procurement organization. And actually even I'm starting a new role this week. So wow. I've had a bunch of different aspects in my career at Apple, and it's continuing to unfold. So it's been really exciting.
That's awesome. You said when coming from Atlanta, you said USC was a dream. Are you saying that USC was on your radar even in Atlanta? Like, so that's rare. Students come to the Southeast saying like, yeah, definitely LA.
Yes, USC in Atlanta means University of South Carolina.
Right.
So yeah, but I think I got some kind of mailing and saw the palm trees, started looking into the programs and thought, man, this is the ideal place to go. Why would I look elsewhere? And in fact, I only applied to 2 schools because it was kind of USC or bust for me. And I'm glad it worked out.
The palm trees on every publication is always the secret. Whenever we mail those out, it's nice for those to arrive in winter too. I think that's always the goal.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. University of South Carolina is always the issue. I mean, I can't tell you how many emails we received toward our application deadline. We had sent out a couple just like, hey, we haven't applied yet, whatever. And these students like, I already applied. I understand. And I'm like, I don't have any record of your application. We went back and forth. I said, can you send me like a screenshot of what you're seeing? And it's like, University of South Carolina applied. I'm like, that's not us. Sorry. Like, I don't know what to help you there. And whenever I look at it now, whenever I see someone saying they've applied, but we don't have a record, I always look at where they live. I'm like, it's the wrong one. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And Peter,
It's
what's
all
your
about
story?
football in the South. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's,
Gamecocks. Yeah.
yeah.
Peter, your story.
Yeah, for sure. So my story is a little bit different than Lydia's. I grew up in the Los Angeles area. I'm originally from the Palos Verdes, Redondo Beach area, so kind of right in your backyard, Paul.
Did you go to PV High?
I went to a smaller school called Chadwick.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I grew up in the LA area. My dad went to USC where he got his MBA. And growing up, he would take us to football games, like, every so often. That's what first sort of introduced me to the university. And as I got older,
the youth indoctrination program.
yeah, it's super effective with the Southern California locals, right? But yeah, as I kind of grew older, and as I approached like high school, I looked into USC more and more. I always knew that I wanted to do engineering. I wasn't quite sure what type of engineering, but that was sort of like my interest area. I learned that USC had a great engineering school in Viterbi, and that was the main like motivator for why I decided to apply. So yeah, I eventually got into USC, said yes. And what's like really cool is from my high school, there were only like 80 kids or so in my graduating class. I think around 16 of us eventually ended up at USC, either by making it in there or transferring in over time. So it's really neat to have that sort of connection of people in terms of a common thread in my life. When I first got into USC, I originally shot for biomedical engineering. I took a few introductory classes in that, and for a variety of reasons, I probably knew right off the bat that wasn't going to be for me.
Yeah, not a good fit.
I explored a bunch of other options, and I landed on industrial and systems engineering. I thought that was the sort of best fit that aligned with my interests. And after I graduated from USC, I still wasn't totally sure exactly what I wanted to do with my career. So what, similar to what other kids in my situation did, I went into consulting. I joined a firm called Capgemini, and I was based in Chicago. And during my time in consulting, I focused on helping large companies implement software to basically enable their businesses. I did that for years and years, basically traveling the world, helping out, different companies all over the place. And it was great. I learned a lot about how complex businesses are run, what makes them great and successful. But over time, I was really kind of doing the same thing over and over again, but just at a different client or customer. And I wasn't really able to see the long-term impact of my work, because you go in, you do your engagement, it was great, you learn a lot from it, but you didn't have the opportunity to build upon it later on, just because of the nature of those engagements. So after my time in consulting, I wanted to switch to a company where, I could really make a greater impact and, attribute my efforts towards something that was a higher growth trajectory in terms of a business. That's how I landed my current job at Zendesk. At Zendesk, I am on the business operations team. Business operations, or biz ops, means something totally different at different companies. So at a company like Facebook, that means like revenue forecasting. Right. At other companies, it can mean different other things. At Zendesk, business operations basically equals working on strategic projects to help our company grow and scale over time. So a way to think about it is we're basically internal consultants, but for our company itself. And I should also give some additional context. Zendesk as a company is a SaaS company that builds software to enable customer experiences. I can get into more details on what exactly that means, but we're in the SaaS industry. And it's a really great company to be a part of. We've been growing like 30, 40% year over year. High growth space, lots of fun, and really making a big impact.
If you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit more, I think it might be helpful to approach it from this lens. A high school student's doing an informational interview with you and saying, what do you do? what's your day to day? What's kind of your 30,000 foot view or just snapshot of what your job is?
Yeah, for sure. So a way to think about our job is, as a company grows, there's going to be challenges that they run into. They could be a whole variety of different issues or challenges. Our team is responsible for taking on those challenges head on and to ensure that we can get over those blockers to enable us to grow at a higher trajectory. So we basically work with our other internal leaders within the company to help them figure out their different business problems and how to overcome them.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then Lydia, you talked about procurement, and I think there's a lot in the background of that word as well. Maybe that's like supply chain issues. And I know you've been really excited in the past to talk about your involvement in kind of new launches of products. And I also know that there's this layer of secrecy of things you can't talk about, of stuff you're doing. So what can you talk about and what you do at Apple, or maybe it's just all in the past, or what can you tease for us? I don't know. I don't want to get you in trouble because I know the Apple, the rules are hanging over our heads in this conversation. So whatever you're able to do.
Sure. Well, let me explain kind of what procurement is at Apple. So I'm in the direct procurement side. And so it's the group that works with suppliers hand in hand to manufacture components that go in our products. That's kind of where I started off, was actually on the battery procurement team. And so I worked with our engineers as we designed unique batteries that went into Apple hardware. And I would, have to travel to China or all over the world, Europe, wherever it may be, to set up manufacturing lines, to put in capacity plans, to negotiate pricing, secure contracts that are all part of the supply chain effort of making those batteries. So there's different groups within procurement that specialize in each of the components. Like I said, I was in the battery specialty. I did that for several years, and it's a very, grueling job just because it's very high stress. There's always a supply chain blocker. We're short on materials. You're dealing with different time zones. So I was, kind of looking for a change after about 4 years of that. And I moved into a kind of offshoot group within procurement called Operation Product Development. And that's a really cool, more internal facing role where you work with cross-functional teams like the hardware engineering team, marketing, finance, operations, to design the future roadmap of products. I happen to specialize in iPads, and I would help as we were dreaming up the product, and we would decide which widgets and everything you want in your design. We need someone to come up with a cost estimate. So you could kind of think of me as a cost engineer. I would put together models and what I thought that product would look like. And inevitably, we were always over budget. We always wanted the best. So then it was my job to propose trade-offs, to propose design changes, material changes, process changes, go look at bringing in other suppliers, and do kind of the project management side of getting all the teams and the right people involved so that we could meet kind of the financial goals of the program. So that's kind of been my career so far at Apple. Now I'm kind of doing that same project management in a new role that's going to focus on supply chain diversification. And it's a role that doesn't exist yet. So I honestly don't know what my roles and responsibilities will be, but that's kind of my next challenge ahead of me.
Interesting. And diversification meaning like sources, or meaning, helping developing nations? Is this like all on the table?
I mean, I think diversification can include, all aspects of that. It's looking at, where do you have risk in terms of maybe single sourcing with certain suppliers? Do you have geographic risk? Think about the tsunami in 2011 that was really tragic in Japan, and how that can wipe out components.
Yeah.
I was actually just, talking to Peter about this the other day when I bought my first car out of college in 2012. I was surprised that even a year after that tsunami, there weren't components that you would normally find in cars like backup cameras. That, whole supply chain was wiped out for a long time. So I think, companies are looking at all these things and how do you mitigate risk from natural disasters, geopolitical risk, from a technology perspective, do you want to diversify among different partners? So there's a lot of angles you can take, and I'm going to start looking into all this.
That's exciting. Congratulations. That's really, really cool. And then for I think for both of you, and maybe this is more of a debate really, but some people would look at your job and say, well, you're not engineers. And I know that's not true. But how would you explain how engineering does what you do? Because I think some people can look at it critically and say like, oh, that's a business person's job. If they think of it like in silos, like, oh, I study business and I'll go into these negotiations on suppliers or anything else. How does engineering play into that? And how is it different?
I guess I can start. So I do think that I really use a lot of the skills from industrial and systems engineering because I'm so much focused on manufacturing and supply chain.
Yeah.
A lot of my job has been working, hand in hand with engineers. And so I need to be able to look at, a BOM, bill of materials of electrical components and understand the differences between them, how they play into a product, looking at material selection. When I was a supply manager for batteries, I was literally on the lines trying to figure out how do we right size UPH to fit, our capacity needs or look at bottlenecks. So there were all these, parts of the manufacturing process that came up in my job, even if I wasn't necessarily the one fixing the line or tooling it, I had to be part of this conversation. So I think that having that engineering background has been really helpful. And actually, most of my peers in similar jobs do have engineering backgrounds.
So with my specific role, it's definitely not as technical as Lydia's. So that's a big difference there. Like you can think of like my role as essentially like management consulting, but like in-house.
Right.
And I will say that, I might not use all the technical things that I learned in my classwork, but the biggest benefit for myself and for other people with similar backgrounds to me who I see in like my line of work is really the approach to problem solving. Like our team will dive into really complex business problems and those types of situations. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is to know where to start. But to be able to apply a framework to problem solving, that's something that is, something that you learn over time in engineering classes, and I think is incredibly valuable. And if you can apply a problem solving, framework to a complex technical problem in the engineering class, like if you can get that down, like doing the stuff in like the business world, like I don't view it as hard in a lot of different situations. I think that sort of thing, which you inherently learn bits and pieces of throughout a bunch of different classes that you would take at Viterbi, really gave me a great sort of toolkit and equipped me well when I did consulting and biz ops in my current role right now.
Cool. Audrey, I'm curious on your take on this because you're about to go, we've been interning for the last couple of years at Microsoft, and you're about to go full time with Microsoft in, I guess, is it product development? I mean, is that the best way to describe what you're going to do?
Just straight mechanical engineering.
Straight mechanical engineering?
Actually, one of my internships was on Microsoft devices sourcing team. So I'm sort of familiar with what Lydia is talking about. And I think as a high school student, you don't necessarily see the direct connection to engineering, but everyone on my team had a technical background as well. And it is super technical. To really understand the value of something is super hard. And it takes a lot of experience and that knowledge as well. And that comes from, the manufacturing side and the design side. So I think that's also a super challenging role to go into like right after college because you don't necessarily have that view to the scale of manufacturing. I think especially for like large tech companies. It's kind of unimaginable. So I think that's super cool. But I was also sort of just curious for both of you, in terms of like how you would define industrial and systems engineering. I think this is like a degree that like fits a lot of these areas of engineering super well, but I think it's difficult for high schoolers to kind of grasp what it is. How would you describe like industrial?
Sounds like a factory, right?
Yeah, industrial and systems engineering, just sort of like your high school self or a high schooler.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a very broad degree, and even at different universities, I think there are sometimes specialties in, maybe the logistics side of industrial engineering or manufacturing. I think Viterbi's approach to industrial and systems engineering is a bit more breadth in what it covers. So I think of it as like the efficiency or study of efficiency in systems. There's a huge manufacturing component of it. I remember taking, like material design courses, a lot of statistics that would play into, manufacturing process controls. So that side's definitely there, but I think we also took some of the more business aspects of industrial engineering coursework, things on the economics of engineering, a lot of math classes. So it was a very kind of broad degree. And I think I liked that in my career because I kind of understand a bunch of different pieces, and I feel like I'm more agile to move into different industries.
Yeah, I think for me, industrial and systems engineering fits a nice crossroads in a way between business and engineering. In terms of some of the other engineering majors, like they could be associated as being very like technical in nature. I would say that ISC is probably not as technical in some regards, but you do have a lot of great overlap with a lot of business courses. Like I think we took like an accounting class that I found like super valuable as part of our ISC curriculum, so that, there's a whole variety of different things across the board that I found to be valuable. I would say that if I were to like describe it to someone, like in engineering, you're like creating something, and that means something different for civil engineering, mechanical engineering, whatnot. For industrial and systems engineering, what you're creating is like the way that I think about it as applied to like the construct that like I'm in for like my work life. It's like the like building of company operations, like that, like that's something that I kind of associate ISC with, at least from my perspective. And not just building of operations, but like how to improve things to make them more efficient as well.
That's really cool, because one of the things I tend to describe, I always put it on our brochures, and the line that I use to describe it is you engineer better businesses. So it sounds like that's what you guys just said.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. You put it much more eloquently, but yes.
No, it's just that's what fit on the brochure. So that's just easy.
There you go.
So, switching gears slightly, the move down to the LA area, was this all COVID inspired? Was this like get out of where you're going to be working remotely pretty much in the future moving forward, and so get out of the Bay?
Yeah, I think at Apple, we don't know what our future is going to look like. Peter's company, I think, is taking the approach of at least some of the workforce going remote. But our move down here was inspired by COVID. I think this year we realized how important it is to be near family, and when you're going through, tough situations, how nice it is to be close to relatives. So that's what inspired our move. And luckily, Apple was supportive of that. But my goal is to eventually go work in the Apple office here in Culver City.
Awesome. Very cool. I actually know someone I went to school with that I think is still working there. I'll have to get you in touch with them at some point, or maybe you already are. But the other question is, how has COVID been for you? I mean, everybody's got their fun stories and their horror stories of like automatically sharing space with your partner 24 hours a day. What's it been like?
So I would say that in the beginning, that may have been part of the forcing function to move down to LA. Like it's like San Francisco, everyone there has their like 600 square foot apartment, that we're living in. You're only in there for X amount of hours during the day. But now, big adjustment, and we are in that 600 square foot space like 24/7, especially in the beginning. And I think like two people like working like in an arm's length in that confined space can be like a little challenging, especially like when there's conference calls and stuff. But we survived through that phase. I feel that, at least for me professionally, our work at Zendesk hasn't been too disrupted. Our company, like the product of ours is software. We develop software, and you can do that distributed and remotely pretty easily. So I think the first month just took a lot of getting used to like how we do work in this new environment. But over time, I think our company's adapted pretty well. And yeah, I think like on a more personal level during COVID, I've taken up some new hobbies.
Oh, really?
Doesn't look like it, but I got into long distance running.
Wow.
And in like San Francisco, like I started just tacking on more and more miles. I was able to do like a half marathon, like
Wow.
running up like Hawk Hill, like on weekends and stuff, which was great.
That's awesome.
So it's like definitely enabled me to explore like new sorts of like hobbies and do things that are good for me that I wouldn't necessarily have the time for. And the commute is couldn't be better. It's fantastic right now.
That is the best part, right? Like, oh, I got a meeting in 10 minutes. I better shower. Like it's just one of those things. It has been a fascinating exercise. And from like the larger kind of zoomed out version to like just the at-home micro version of like, what's the point of an office if you're just going to drive there and work to come home and then taking work home and being on time for work when it's just to sit at a desk, like all these different questions that are really fascinating to look at. It's, for me, it was the first probably 6 to 8 months was just gluttony. Like it was just like, I don't have to do anything. I will sit here. I will go enjoy my food and beverage, and then I will come back. I'm trying to take a different angle to 2021. But I'm thoroughly, I've said this multiple times in the podcast, I'm thoroughly enjoying the work from home routine. But same thing, working out, we don't have a big house here. We have a small house, and we're definitely feeling it. And so we're in the same regards of like, I think we got to get out of LA because we're getting squeezed because we've got a kindergartner taking kindergarten class, and I'm doing calls, and we need some space to just be sane. And it's like a whole other level to it that like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but we're definitely having lots of conversations. You guys, the theme of this episode, we're going to post this on Valentine's Day, just as a heads up. So it's Happy Valentine's Day for everyone that's listening. And this is Love at Viterbi, because you two found love at Viterbi. And you're also, by the way, our second episode. We're posting one just a little bit ago with another couple. I think you overlapped with Claire and Ryan, Claire Christian and Ryan Teams. Yeah. So you're our two episodes. Yeah. You guys went to school at the same time, which is really cool as well. Let's talk about this. How did you guys meet? How did that happen? And then I think a larger question is, Peter, would it at all have happened if you didn't have that momentous occasion of hating biomedical engineering and deciding you wanted to go ISE? Like, would this just be a whole different alternate universe?
Potentially, yeah. Well, yeah. I'll take this one on how we met. So as you heard, we both were in industrial engineering, but Peter was actually a year above me. So we were a grade apart. My junior year, his senior year, we met because I ended up in 3 senior level classes. So I was with all the seniors in industrial engineering, and Peter was recruiting for a full-time job after graduation. Was often coming to class directly from interviews or career info sessions. And so there were times where he would skateboard wearing his suit to class. And it definitely caught my eye of, who is this cute guy all dressed up in my classes? And so I tried to get to know him, over the course of the semester, always trying to invite him over to study. And he is very studious, so that's exactly what we would do. And, I kept inviting him to study. That was actually the first semester at USC. I got a 4.0.
Whoa.
I was just trying to get him to come over.
And he's none the
and
wiser this whole time. He's none the wiser. He's just like,
yeah, he's
whoa,
none the
very,
wiser.
very, very academically focused friend here.
Yep. But I think eventually his eyes opened and he wanted to take me to one of his fraternity semi-formals. That was our first date. And he kind of procrastinated until the last minute and needed to find me the night before to ask me. I happened to be on campus at a career info session that was meant for juniors only. And it was sponsored by Capgemini Consulting. Peter came and, kind of stole the show with the recruiters. And so not only did he ask me on a first date, but he got an interview with them. And within 2 weeks, had a full-time offer at their Chicago office. So little did he know that one night
would determine the rest of my life.
Yeah,
That's great.
First job and his future wife.
That's efficiency right there. I see.
That's IC. That's an IC romance right there.
Yeah. So that was kind of how we met. And then, we just continued dating and, we were long distance. I was finishing up school. We were living across the country, Chicago, Houston, eventually moved to the Bay Area together. So, I think we've kind of navigated all sorts of post-grad life and career changes together. It's been really sweet.
So Peter, from your perspective, you were just being, like I would be, the dumb guy in this whole scenario, right? And then like, when did it click for you that like, oh, this is something that's happening and that I would like to be a part of?
Yeah, for sure. So I think like going back to Lydia's story, like the reason why I waited until the last minute was to ask her out was because I was so nervous about it, and
that's what I figured.
I just wait until the last possible second, right? But like in terms of like long-term stuff, I think like over time, like, after college when we were dating, we were doing long distance for 2+ years. And that was super, challenging. I eventually got the opportunity to relocate from Chicago to Houston, where she was at the time. Capgemini allowed me to do that, and it worked out. And I feel like when I moved to Houston, like I didn't know anything about the city. I had no friends there. All I knew was that she was there. And that's when, I was really like, all right, like pot committed, like this is going to be awesome. So
that's awesome. Congratulations. And now I had heard part of that story before. I think last time we saw each other at that event in the Bay Area, like I think Lydia, you told that story before. And I will admit to you that recalling that story of I think you said it in a different way, but basically that you caught your eye walking into class into a suit every day, was the inspiration for the Love at Viterbi podcast here. So that was what, 2-3 years ago that I saw you. I can't remember what it was, but basically the thought occurred to me a couple of weeks ago. I was like, this will work. This is gonna be an awesome thing. So thanks for making it all come a reality. Now you guys, I know from Instagram, are big time skiers, and you're also showing that off with your Cornice Bowl Black Diamond sign back there. So always been skiers. What's the story, and what is Cornice Bowl? I'm unfamiliar.
So I've always been a big skier ever since I was 4 years old. My parents took me onto the slopes, been up to Mammoth a whole bunch. The Cornice Bowl is a very popular run at Mammoth. It's one of the more challenging ones. Like at the very top, it's like this big bowl. Yeah, it's like kind of challenging. It's like sort of steep. It's a black diamond, but it's like a iconic one at Mammoth Mountain. Hence why I have the sign there. But yeah, like skiing is like one of those things that I truly love to do and I'm passionate about. We actually just got back from a trip to Aspen like 2 days ago. So, it's the winter season. We try to hit up as many mountains as we can. We have an icon pass. Although skiing is my passion, it wasn't originally her passion. So, I kind of taught her over time over the past 5 years or so to, get better at skiing, and she's happily obliged.
Yeah, growing up in Atlanta, didn't really have easy access to the mountains, so it wasn't something that I ever picked up. And then when we were dating, I was always intimidated to come on a ski trip because he's an expert skier and I would have to start from the beginning. But I eventually realized it was going to be a hobby that we would both need to enjoy in life. So I decided to put myself through ski school. Peter's been very patient as I've been learning. And so I can't quite keep up with you. Definitely not in terms of speed, but at least I can follow you.
She's being humble. She's a total pro right now. She was cruising Black Diamonds at Aspen last weekend. Like she's at another level. We actually just got you skis too.
Okay,
so
finally got
now we don't even have to rent anymore. You got your own.
That's awesome. Audrey, you're a big skier too, right?
I am a big skier. So I grew up in Denver, but I have an Epic Pass. So other mountains.
Ooh, competing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite mountain?
I've kind of grown up skiing at Breckenridge actually. My whole family, like my uncle has a house up there, so we like all ski together. It's super fun. But Breckenridge has like become very crowded, I think, in recent years. So over break I skied quite a bit at Vail. And I like Keystone. I think Keystone's a great mountain. And I love A Basin too, but that's on the Icon Pass now. So and love.
Have you ever done California skiing? What do you think of the California mountains?
I have never skied in California. I'm kind of a ski snob. Well,
that's fair.
Just, although they got so much snow in Tahoe this past week, and Colorado hasn't gotten great snow this year, it's almost easier. I mean, this year's a little different, but it's almost easier for me to go back to Denver, like fly home to Denver and ski than to like go to Mammoth or there are a couple mountains. Like Kirkwood is on the Epic Pass, I think. I think it's a longer drive than I think it is, and I think it's long. So I think it's very long.
Yeah, it's a long drive.
Yeah. So, but in Seattle, I was looking. Obviously, there are a lot of mountains up there to ski too. So I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll be able to do so many amazing outdoor activities.
Oh yes,
I'm
not like super outdoorsy. I think Seattle will surpass my level of outdoorsy, but hopefully I can get there.
Where's your guys's, your favorite spot or the place that you're like, yeah, that's it. That's the best for skiing?
My personal favorite is Jackson Hole. You get a ton of snow up there. They season after season, they tend to skew on the higher end of snowfall totals. The snow up there is like nice and crisp and dry, so you have like pretty good powder, sort of similar to what you get in Colorado and Utah as well. And the runs are just so challenging there. Like some of like the hardest, like most fun like runs I've ever experienced are over there. And like Jackson as a town itself is like pretty cool. It's got like that whole like Western vibe and character to it, which is also very neat as well. That being said, Jackson's probably not the best mountain if you're like a beginner, but it's my personal favorite.
I've never skied there, but I have been to Jackson, and I think it's a really fun town. So
yeah,
it definitely checks the boxes for a good skiing location. And they have the big like tram there, right?
Yeah. They got the famous tram, takes you up 4,000 feet all in one go. It's very neat.
Wow, very cool. What when you guys look back on your USC times, either collectively or individually, what do you remember the most? What do you remember as far as like experiences that you had that were formative, or even just that one tradition or that one place to eat, or like what pops to mind when you think about your time at USC?
So many good memories. Obviously, a lot of good memories with Peter here. But one of the things that sounds funny that I really miss is my beach cruiser that I ride around campus. And just the warm weather. I feel like there were so many times where I'd come out of like a really challenging midterm, feel like destroyed, and then just get on my beach cruiser, sun on my face, and everything was right in the world again. It was also just so nice to being so close to all our friends. When you're in post-grad life, that's when you really start to realize how lucky you are to live within, like a square mile of all your favorite people. So we had such a good community kind of individually, and we had overlap, when we, started dating, but it was so nice to just run into people around campus. And, LA has so much to offer when we did decide to go off campus, going to the beach and exploring the area was always so fun.
I think for me, well, she said beach cruiser. My preferred method of transport was longboard. So I miss skateboarding and all of that. That's like a very unique, like USC specific thing. I feel like I never see or hear about that anywhere else. I'm not even sure if it's still a thing, but at least it was when I was there.
It is more so than you want it to be.
Gotcha. Yeah, and like obviously like USC like has a great engineering school. I learned a lot during my time there. I enjoyed a lot of the different classes and the professors that I had. But even like beyond that too, like there's another aspect that where like USC really offers like a full complete package. Like you have a vibrant student body and like student life, and that's a testament to like the great people that come to the school and like the long-term relationships that we've developed since then. Like a lot of our closest friends, like other like married couples that we're really close with, are our past classmates who we met at USC. So we have a lot of like great relationships from that. I also miss like some of like the more like one-off classes that I had the opportunity to take at USC. Like there's this great class that's not even an engineering class. It's called Film Symposium. I'm not sure if it's still being taught, but that was such an awesome class, being able to like take a class that's completely different from like my normal curriculum, and kind of get like that contrast and like true like breadth of stuff. And I reached out and I took a bunch of other different classes as well. I did everything from swimming to electrical engineering to film symposium, so it was always great to have a breadth beyond like my core curriculum work.
Lydia, do you have any recommendations on a class that someone should definitely look at that's outside the curriculum that you took?
It's a great question. I definitely always maxed out my credits, trying to get value, because that's part of my efficiency, background.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, I mean, it varied. There were times where I took things that I thought would be really practical. Like I took some classes on SAP. I think you could even get like a certificate from it. I took a Photoshop class because I thought that would be fun, but maybe useful. I took a lot of kind of physical education classes like yoga, tennis, swimming. I took film symposium as well. I don't know, there was a lot.
What was a great one? Golf. Yeah. Golf was super valuable. And like, it's not like you're hitting like real golf balls. I think you just go like on a field, like on campus and hit like the foam ones.
Yeah.
But that was great because like now I can at least like hit the ball in a straight line. And like, I attribute that solely to that golf class at USC.
That's awesome. What about experiences? So much of your time at USC is involvements, activities, things like that. What's your recommendation to if someone's going to just choose one thing, or what was the most valuable experience to each of you outside of your classes?
I wasn't just involved in one thing. I think I was so excited to be at USC that anytime something came my way, I said yes. I was excited to get involved in everything. So, I mean, I had a lot of activities. I was really involved in Viterbi, and that was really fulfilling to meet students, to get leadership skills, to kind of network with some of the professors. At Viterbi, so I was a freshman academy coach. I was one of your VSAs. I did research on campus, which was really awesome. I feel like that's a unique experience for undergrads. Some of my closest friends, though, I think actually came from Greek life. So that was really fulfilling to me. And I think that was also helpful to just meet people in other backgrounds. I felt very motivated by all the women that I met there, who were all like super engaged in internships and jobs on campus as well. And so I think it was nice to kind of be part of that community of like driven people.
Yeah. And, I have like a similar sort of reflection on that too, like at least from my perspective, it doesn't necessarily like matter the exact like club or like thing that you do, but like if you do have an interest, like go out there and do it, and like, you know, put yourself out there, put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and you know, that's where you really like grow and like further develop like as a person. I feel, at least I did for sure. um like I took on leadership positions in my fraternity that were like, you know, challenging things, but you know, helped me like grow in other ways beyond just, you know, doing like coursework like on campus. um yeah, like just if you have an interest, you see something that you might be interested in, just being able to get after it. That's my biggest tip right there.
It sounds like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? All the different things that you did and the interactions across these different people, and you didn't limit yourself, and that's where you had that growth. To summarize both of you, and that's I think that's good advice, because so many, specifically high school students, come in and they think with an engineering mindset, I'm going to be practical, and I'm going to choose my my timing, or where I devote my time with precision. And I think that what advice would you give to a high school student that's about to start at USC? Is there anything that you've learned over your time, in addition to this idea of like just put yourself out there? But what do you think people need to hear?
I mean, there's just so much offered at USC. It's kind of like, you know, get involved in and explore everything. I feel like I even wasn't aware of all the like services that were offered to me as a student in terms of tutoring help or career services. I feel like everything's kind of like, yeah, you know, at your disposal, and it's up to you to just say yes to them. I think, you know, getting involved outside of your major, whether it's like a club that you're really interested in or taking a class or two, an elective outside, is just kind of great to see another perspective in life, to meet people from different connections. And, you know, in the end, those might be lasting friendships or professional connections that will be really valuable down the line. So, you know, get out there, kind of take advantage of everything that USC, you know, is providing you, and just, you know, make the most of your time. Like I said, living near all these amazing people on campus. It's such a wonderful opportunity. I look back so fondly on my 4 years there.
Yeah, if I were to like do it all over again, I feel like when I first came into USC, like I sort of had like my strict like agenda, like, okay, cool, like I'm going to do these engineering classes. This is like what I got on the docket. Like, you know, like I already like had like a path sort of charted, at least in my mind, of like what the 4 years is going to look like. And it's like good to do that in a way, but I would also encourage folks to leave some wiggle room to like squeeze in like other like things that you might be interested in or want to pursue from like a curriculum perspective, but also like beyond just like schoolwork, like, you know, making time for like other things that might be of interest to you, you know, whether it's different clubs or other social organizations, things like that. Like, I think that that's, you know, part of the greater like college experience, you know.
Yeah, especially have that plan, and for you, Peter, that plan got blown up right away when BME went out the door. So like, it definitely taught you
Blew it
a
right
difference.
up, yeah.
When you know, you're both not only just incredibly cool, but incredibly successful, and you've had a lot of experience, you know, professionally across a variety of fields and companies. Um, what do you what do you attribute that? It's a really weird question. Is what do you attribute that success to, or more specifically, what's probably the one most important lesson you learned that you kind of keep coming back to, is like, yeah, I know how to do that now, and that's what gets me to where I am. That's what gets me to go to that next step. Is there something that was formative, or is it a collective kind of group of experiences? Yeah, I'm thinking more in terms for our current students, right? So
Yeah.
like they're taking classes thinking that the answers are in their classes, if that makes sense.
There's two things that come to mind that I feel like USC really prepared me for well, and that's problem solving, critical thinking, and communication skills. Especially when I started off in the oil and gas industry. I came in with industrial engineering into that. Yes, I could have been a petroleum emphasis at USC, but I didn't have that background. And I was kind of competing for jobs with students that came from universities in Oklahoma, Texas, that were very, very specific to petroleum. And yet I think I excelled beyond them because I just came in with, kind of no fear that I could tackle and learn anything because I had that problem solving background. And I also think that the communication skills that they teach you at Viterbi were just really valuable in my professional career. I think about, it's, writing for engineers, one of his advanced classes, and even just in any, industrial engineering coursework, I feel like we often had presentations or team presentations that were required in that coursework. And it really helped me develop that skill set of not being just so technically focused, but how do you communicate with anyone at a company? How do you represent yourself well? How do you get your idea across? And I saw a lot of other students that came from other universities that were brilliant, but they just really struggled in that regard. So I think the problem solving and communication that they teach you at Viterbi will carry you well in whatever industry you go to, even if it's outside your academic background.
I would say with my line of work, one of the most challenging things is having to deal with ambiguity. I feel like in a lot of other areas, like there's a right answer and a wrong answer. Like in like math, like you're either like right or like you're wrong. Like if it doesn't like add up, right? With like some exception, but like I would say that dealing with ambiguity and being able to form like a point of view or like direction on like where you should go when it comes to solving a problem, that's something that Viterbi equipped me with when it came to some of like the more like specialized, like more senior classes, if I recall. And that's something that I think has served me well in my career thus far. Like I'll be brought in to help our business solve like these complex problems that like other people who are like really functionally like devoted to like that specific area like don't know how to solve, and I don't necessarily have that functional expertise, but I'm able to go in there and like apply some sort of framework, make some sort of sense out of the ambiguity, create some sort of point of view, and being able to push that forward to see if it works, and being able to work with ambiguity and to form that point of view, I think it's a skill that's not easily sort of taught, but I think Viterbi through a variety of different classes did equip me well with that. And it's been something that's helped me be successful in my opinion.
That's amazing. It's something that I'm constantly talking about with our students, specifically VSAs, about navigating gray area. Clearing the gray area and developing solutions. And it's a constant frustration that students have with me when I don't give clear directions. I'm like, because I don't know what you're going to do, and we need to navigate it together and see what's going to happen. And we'll trip a little bit and we'll redirect a little bit, but honestly, like this is how the real world works. And it's especially when we deal with things, and Audrey and I've had discussions like this, when it deals with aesthetics, right? What's going to look good? I don't know. We're going to see it and we're going to decide if it looks good at the end. And that's for like a podcast or a website or anything we're putting out. Like, let's just start doing stuff and see what happens. Well, I need to know what it's going to involve. I'm like, I don't know what it's going to involve. Let's go on the journey together. We'll figure it out. Audrey, what any other thoughts on some of this or questions you have, especially as you're about to go into this big bad executive and corporate world?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm just kind of curious. We talked a little bit at the beginning, sort of about COVID and how that was sort of an impetus for Lydia and Peter to move back to LA. But I'm curious now that Peter brings up this point about ambiguity, like how COVID has changed that for you. And I'm thinking back to Lydia, of course, looking at procurement and supply chain, not necessarily at Apple, but worldwide. Of course, that's something I think we're all learning about now with the vaccines and N95 masks and stuff like that. I'm just curious kind of what impact that has had on your outlook, whether it be, personal or professional.
Great question. I mean, I think personally, a lot of people, including us, had to just kind of be patient and put things on hold this year. And I think that we've like navigated that well as a couple. It's been nice having each other to kind of go through the challenges of working from home and moving and dealing with the ambiguity of not knowing when we'll return to an office and what that's going to look like. From a professional standpoint, yeah, I think every company is so challenged. Even just working from home that first month when everyone, went digital, it's like all our video conferencing was crashing, no one could keep up. But over time, I think that, at least in my company, I've seen how people are really starting to think about more fundamental questions on how do we best use our time? Are meetings even valuable? What should be a Slack versus an email versus a meeting? How are we more productive when we get together? I do think that there's still so much value in connecting face to face. And I see that, both professionally and personally, how, sometimes you do need that human connection. So I'm really interested to see what our kind of post-COVID world looks like. I personally feel like we're going to all be longing for that connection again, but maybe it won't be 100% of the time. I think like we'll all appreciate that human interaction a lot more, but we've also experienced like the great flexibility of work from home life and being able to be closer to family or travel to different places and still do your job.
Yeah, it's really funny because at the beginning of last year, my company, similar to all of our peers, we had this like grand plan for like what we were going to do for the year, like our annual plan or whatever companies want to call their own version of it. And that totally got torpedoed in early March, and being able to pivot from that and to focus on what really was important was really critical for our company. And not just being able to help our customers well who are struggling, but also to ensure that our employees were properly equipped with the right processes and tools and like guidance in order to be successful in their jobs. So all of that is like a huge body of work. And I think like if we were to look at all that work holistically, it's very overwhelming. But what we try to do is really kind of chunk it off, like, day by day, focusing on like what is the most important in different areas. I think that this pandemic, at least in my industry, has forever changed it. I think that even in a post-COVID world, at least in my opinion, a lot of the work that we are going to be doing in the future will be digital first. Like sure, there might be team meetings in a conference room, but the expectation will be that you will have like a Zoom video like available too to like pipe in other folks who might not be at the office. A lot of companies in our industry are giving full flexibility in terms of whether or not you want to be in office or remote or some blend thereof. So I think that specific in like the software like SaaS industry, like things are definitely changing. I think that there are some companies that are really struggling, obviously, like to make things work in the pandemic, and then there are other companies that are becoming more efficient than ever when it comes to like delivering product and like doing work, so I think there's sort of like mixed results, and they're just kind of depending on the company. I had something else to say on this. I forgot what it was though.
I actually had a question back to you, Audrey. You're going to be starting a new job potentially with some kind of remote work. Maybe we'll be back in the office, but what's your outlook on how you're going to navigate that challenge of working with new people and starting a new job potentially remote?
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing, honestly, for myself over the past year has just kind of been like managing my own expectations. Like, even so, I'm supposed to start in August, and like I want to think that, by then everything will be in person and it'll just be like normal. But of course, that's more than likely not the case. So I think for one thing, just being flexible myself of like, this could be online, this could be in person. Either way, I'll make the best of it. And in terms of like meeting new people and starting remotely, I definitely think in one sense, I feel really fortunate because I do know a lot of people at Microsoft from my 2 summers there, and even just from USC, at Microsoft and sort of in Seattle more generally or more broadly. So I think that'll be really great to sort of have some connections built in. But I think, even in a podcast we did a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how like difficult it is to make friends for new students over Zoom and stuff like that. And I think I know for me, I'll have to be like really proactive about the relationships I form and active in maintaining them as well, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think that's one thing I've learned, like personally, definitely, is just like it in this time, you really have to like put work into all of your relationships, whether personal, professional, whatever. And I think that's a good lesson to take over, even if we are ever in that scenario again where you were talking about just like running into people on campus. If even if that's the case, it's still good to shoot people a text every once in a while, I guess. So I think that's kind of what I'm focused on. But yeah, I'm also just trying to go into everything with an open mind. So hopefully that'll help.
It's a good approach.
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times, but I feel for all the younger generation. Like, I do not envy them in this, like people, high school students, college students, young adults, anyone making these transitions. Because if there's anything we learned is that even on your conversation here about your history and your background for the two of you, it's all about kind of the network of people the relationships that grew with you over time. That was like a thread of this conversation, not only between the two of you, but everything else, and activities and involvements and engagements, all that kind of like props you up to where you are now. And so the fact that, there's a lot more restrictions and kind of just walls between people making those connections. I feel really, really horrible. I don't know how that happens. And I'm on the other end of this where I'm just a grumpy old man. Like, I'm staying home. I'm cool. I'm good. I'm past that. I got my 4 friends. I'm good. Like, this is life, and we're done. Like, I'm totally happy with this. And I know that I'm the exception to all of this. And I was just having that conversation with my staff the other day. I'm like, open-ended conversation, work from home. Let's say things get clear. What would you want to do? And I just assumed that it would be more on my part. And I had this real eye-opening where it's like, no, I'd like to do like 3 days a week. And I was like, okay, so I'll maybe do 1, and then we'll see how you guys do. And if you guys stay there, that's cool with me. Because like for me, it's always like the things that were in the beginning part of working at USC that was so cool about it is the things that happen in between stuff, right? Walking to the bathroom, walking across campus, all this little engagement. And then as I get older and grumpier, it's like the things that are taking me away from being productive are like engagements outside the hallway, like people stopping me, asking me questions like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Or what about this? And so now I'm just grumpy, and that's fine. I need to live with that, but I'm on the other side of this.
I think it's very difficult to meet new connections digitally, but the silver lining is that this year has actually made me connect with people who don't live in my city more, because it's so much more natural to FaceTime with people. And so actually, I feel like I've become a lot closer with friends that live elsewhere that I used to only call a couple times a year. And now there's like no boundaries. It's not like I just hang out with my neighborhood friends. There's no barriers to entry in friendship. So like that's for true. You moving to Seattle, Audrey, like maybe it will actually be easier to stay in touch with some of the friends you've already established that are going to go move across the country as well.
Yeah, totally. I think I feel like the past year or so of college, as I've gotten closer to graduating and just my friends as well, we definitely talk about like, it is sort of scary graduating. And I think school is for our whole lives, how we have like our social networks kind of built in. And so I think now that a lot of our friends we aren't seeing as is, of course, just because of restrictions due to COVID, it's like we're kind of already in that phase of just like FaceTiming or whatever. So I think Paul and I were talking about this the other day. It's like like slowly going towards graduation. It's not just like a sudden change in life, because I'm not taking classes in person. Like, I'm not doing a lot of the things that we think about senior year, just school being.
That emotional cliff of leaving school is not necessarily there anymore. You're kind of already three steps out.
Yeah, but we'll see. I think it'll be interesting, and looking forward to seeing what our world's like and what life after college is like.
Well, speaking of the future, the unfair question here: what's next for you two? It's an unfair question, but old people like me get to ask. When are kids coming? Is that in the plan, or is it just the two of you? And there's obviously no wrong answer here.
Depends if you're offering a scholarship for our future children or not.
If I am still doing this, when you have a future kid that wants to come to school, then sure. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see where life takes us. I'm sure that will be in our future. It's nice to be back in Southern California, closer to family too. So.
Yeah, I feel like in the past month, we've entered like a new horizon in life. Like now that we are back in LA and like we are looking to plant deeper roots in here, like long term. I think that's like a more holistic, thing that we're looking forward to. On a professional level, like, Lydia is beginning a new role at Apple, which should be pretty fun. And then on my side of the house, I'm also building up a team underneath me of other biz ops managers and stuff to take on some of the strategic projects that we're working on within my company. So, we have a lot of like interesting, unique, professional challenges in front of us that we're looking forward to. But we're really looking forward to deepening our relationships with friends here in LA and really kind of getting back to knowing the place well where we first met, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Are you always dressed this perfect and camera ready for all of your meetings throughout the day? Because y'all came on like this is a perfect like rate my room exercise in a brand new place you moved in. The landscape's great. You're all dressed and both gorgeous. Is this a usual day for you? Because I'm like barely putting sweatpants on.
At least from the top half.
The top.
Definitely wear slippers on.
Little do you know that I'm wearing shorts underneath all of this.
Yeah, no, I just stopped worrying about the tops as well. Unless I'm in like a presentation, then I'll get the one dress shirt out of the closet that I've been wearing for 9 months that I wear for about 30 minutes at a time, then put it back.
I guess this is pretty formal for our industry. I guess like most of my coworkers.
Yeah, tech is pretty casual, so.
Like Paul's shirt right there is like par for the course, It's
good. Yeah, this is a classic. I got to hold on to this one. I realized sometimes in the beginning of COVID, also I had some shirts where I was like, oh, that's not appropriate. I shouldn't wear that one. There was one in particular. I remember putting it on and going into a meeting with my bosses, and I realized, oh, I need to angle that camera up a little bit. And I didn't realize till I was on camera that what the words were saying in front of me. Yeah, and also now I have someone who can read and a 5-year-old that can read, and so now I need to change a lot of my shirts, which is not a fun thing. Well, hey, you all have been so generous with your time, and I am so thankful that you were able to spend this time with us and share your love at Viterbi story, not only just the love of Viterbi story, but also just your successes and all of your accomplishments, both at USC and beyond. And it's always been so great to stay in contact with both of you and see all the things that you do. And you're also incredibly generous with your time as alumni. And so I'm incredibly thankful for that. And it's just really great having you guys kind of in our universe. And I'm so happy that you're back in LA. I'll give you one more rec. I remember, Peter, last time we were eating together, we were having a conversation about beer, if I remember correctly. And I think you're a beer fan. Am I right on that one?
Yeah, I like my beers.
You like your beers. Okay, good. I do too. And so if you come closer to me, go to El Segundo, make sure you pick up a few from the El Segundo Brewing Company. It's quite far, like above and beyond one of the best microbrews on the planet. And it's right here in your backyard. And they release some limited edition stuff. So check it out.
I love it. I'll have to check them out for sure.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to, things opening up in LA eventually, getting back on campus. So definitely invite us when the doors are open.
If I'm ever back, yeah, that's the whole question. That's the whole question. I haven't been back since. I mean, I have this virtual environment that's as close as I get to it. Well, thanks you too. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yep.
This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Paul, for the Love at Viterbi idea, which we learned in this episode was inspired by Lydia and Peter.
Yes.
So
It was inspired because she told that story about seeing Peter in a suit, and it turned her head. And I've heard her told that story before, and so that's what really inspired it. And I will say, I didn't want to call her out on it, but she's the one that gave me the line that I fed to Claire and Ryan about so you met in an EE class and the sparks flew, and that was her line. I thought she would go down that road, so she didn't use it. But for credit where credit's due. Yeah, that is her line, because I've heard her tell that story before. So
yeah, and I think, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think one theme from this podcast that is a good lesson for everyone that aligns with Love at Viterbi is just sort of the idea that relationships are everything. And I think this is sort of what we started chatting about at the end is while we're virtual and, perhaps we don't know what that's going to look like in the future either, how do you maintain and grow like professional and personal relationships? And that's something that's I know so important throughout college and also professionally. So good tips there also.
Absolutely. I am struck by the overlapping threads that happened between Claire and Ryan's conversation and Lydia and Peter's conversation, and they all kind of sprung around the idea of making plans and navigating ambiguity, and this idea of go into it, see what happens, learn how to solve problems, build relationships, and engage. And that's where that seems to be if anyone's looking for a recipe for success, it's that. And it's not actually pre-planning, because when you pre-plan, then you're not able to do those things in a certain sense. At least it's not mutually exclusive. There should be this idea of, people use these kind of larger metaphorical terms of like, oh, go where the wind takes you. And it's like it's not about being like this free-spirited, like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, but having this lack of rigidity in your life and seeing how experiences will shape you is probably the most important thing for not only navigating college successfully, but building a successful path for your future. It was really interesting. So many of the same conversations came up, right?
Totally. And I guess kind of along the lines of that, but interesting hearing in both episodes, I guess, sort of their favorite memories from USC were, like riding a bike or skateboarding through campus. It's these sort of things that, of course, you're not planning on these things. So I think that's another message, I guess, just for college students. And I can say this too, looking back on my 4 years, is just sort of to enjoy those moments. So
absolutely, it's always the spaces between where so many things happen. So really, really cool. And I'm so glad that they shared so much time with us and so many really thoughtful responses and really introspective. So cool stuff. Smart people, just like all 10 of you listeners out there. Smart people doing cool stuff like listening to our podcast. So thank you again for joining us. And I hope that this Valentine's Day finds you engaging in relationships, however in depth they might be, and enjoying where the wind pushes you a little bit. And so that will be our final point today. And Audrey, I hope that you have a fantastic Valentine's Day and that you get to engage in some relationships as virtual or in person as you can based on the limitations where you're at. So